Hello everyone! In today's video I'm working on a commission piece. She's going to be a star butterfly from the cartoon Star vs. the Forces of Good and Evil. To make her I'm using an Ever After High Raven Queen doll. I'm starting out on the costume and I'm using some headband fabric. It was just a headband that I found at a local Dollar Tree. And I cut out 2 strips of the fabric and I'm stitching them up into 2 little tubes that I stitch the end so they can be like thigh-high pantyhose. And I'm turning them right side out using a chopstick. I didn't want to leave the raw edge at the top, so what I did is folded it down, and so it could still stretch and fit onto the leg, I tacked it in the back and in the front so that it would hold the fold over but still allow it to stretch at the top. Having a little trouble with the toe here. I probably could have rounded it out a little bit better, but in the end it did work and fit on her foot. So if you sew it tight enough or small enough, then it fits just perfectly. So here I'm doing the tacking in the front and back of the thigh high just to fold it down, and so it just doesn't have that raw edge. Next I'm taking some epoxy sculpt and I'm going to mix equal parts of each piece or compound. And to do that I just roll out 2 balls and kind of flatten them down just to make sure that the measurement is right. And then mix them up real good. I'm using this little silicone mold, and this is allowing me to make sure that the back of the clay is rounded. Just trying to keep it round while I do my work. And what I'm doing here is actually sculpting the wand of the character. So gently patting it in so that can make set in pretty well, so it'll get rounded on the back. And then I use this star. It's quite a bit bigger than I want it, but I'm just using it sort of as a base to go by, and then cutting it down a little bit smaller. It's just helping me get a perfect star. And I'm using this little blade to make those cuts. And then scooping it up, and I lay it on top of the ball that I made. And then I sculpt it on a little bit. Then I'm taking, I think it's the cap to something, and just indenting a circle on the top of just kind of around the star. For the wand, I'm taking this Q-tip. I'm making sure it's a Q-tip that has a plastic center, and then cutting it down, cutting off the ends so I can use that as the handle. Gently taking out the clay so I can make the hole for where the handle will go. I'll glue it in once the clay is dried. Just very gently twisting it in just to make that little hole. And I'm squishing it a little bit now, but it'll get straightened out once I put it back in my mold. So taking some sculpting tools, I'm just gonna sculpt it back into shape a little bit better. Now I'm doing the wings for the wand, and to do that I just kind of cut out an oval piece and then just started sculpting it into the shape of wings with some sculpting tools. And then I cut it in half to the size that I want, and over to the left you can see I'm using some reference photos. And then I took a circle or oval cutter, it's sort of like these little cookie cutter type things, and just rounded it out a little bit so it set onto the round piece a little bit easier. And then here I'm just cutting out a little crown for the top. And then blending that into the top of the circle. And I sculpted it a little bit better off camera just to make sure everything blended well. Oh, but here I'm taking some little pieces to make that tiny little flower that's at the bottom, right above the stem. And like I said, once I finished this, I took my sculpting tools and just kind of smushed them, the pieces that I made together, just to adhere them a little bit better and make everything a little bit smoother. The next day I took it out of the mold and found that the bottom part of the clay wasn't quite set, so I took it out and turned it upside down and allowed it to dry another 24 hours. And then it was solid. So back to the pantyhose, the star versus, I looked at several reference photos and it looked like most of them had orange and purple for on the pantyhose. So what I did was take this is like puffy fabric paint, and I just squirted it out on my craft mat, and it worked really super well to paint fabric, and this is something that I'm definitely going to do in the future. If you use acrylic paint for painting fabric, it can crack and chip, but this paint is super, it really covered really well, and it's stretchy, so when I let them dry, took them off and then put them back on, they stretched out and didn't crack. So I was really thrilled with the result of that. So for the dress, I went searching kind of high and low for the right color fabric. It was sort of this turquoise green or minty green, and I found this t-shirt at the Dollar Tree, so that worked as well. I'm using some pinking shears to make the cuts, and it really helps the t-shirt not roll up on me while I'm trying to sew it, and it also helps the edges not fray. And in usual fashion, I'm not using any patterns and just cutting it to fit the doll. Just little shapes for the sleeves, little rectangles for the sleeves. Oh, sorry, I'm not sure what happened with the camera there. So once I have the shape of the top part, I am stitching up the shoulders, and I'm using some fray check to prevent the fraying around the collar. Making the sleeves and turning them inside out, and stitching those to the main part of the shirt. Just using the end of a paintbrush to kind of situate that, and then I cut up the back and stitched it so that I could hook the back together. I ended up going back and resizing the skirt. I thought that I wanted it to kind of puff out more than it actually needed to, so I cut it down a little bit and made it, after I sewed it together, and then just made it more A-line. The front of her shirt has this cute little ghost on it, so I cut out of a piece of felt a little ghost, and then it was kind of lined and had a face on it, so I used some more of this puffy paint in pink outlined it, and gave her some little eyes and a mouth. And then using some fabric paint or fabric glue, I glued it to the front of the shirt. And here you can see the dress was quite puffy. It just wasn't the way that I wanted it to. So like I said, I undid it, or took out the stitches and re-sewed it in more of an A-line. I did that off camera, so I apologize. Here I'm adding some lace. I had this little scoop lace, and I used it for around the arms and around the skirt. And onto the hair. So I did the hair in a different order because I usually do the hair before I start anything, but I was waiting on this special yarn to come in the mail. This is 100% alpaca, and I was so thrilled with it. Was a little difficult to detangle because, as you may have seen in previous videos, I untangle it and then I'll root it. It's a little bit difficult to undo, but it was super soft and a lot less shedding than the alpaca that's not 100%. So highly recommend 100% alpaca if you're going to use yarn for your rooting. So here I'm using the 100% acetone nail polish remover to remove the factory paint, and I'm painting her scalp. Since her hair was going to be down and not in a style, I want to make sure that you can't see her scalp very well, even though the rooting is pretty thick and you can't anyway. Just thought I would give it a paint the color of the yarn that I'm using. Can't stop playing with this yarn. It is so soft, so fluffy. I just love it. So using my rooting tool, I gave her a reroot. Try to hit all or most of the already established holes in the head. So soft and fluffy. Once it's fully rerooted, I hold it tight at the scalp and then I use my dog brush to fluff it out. So soft. So for her boots, I didn't have a pair that was just plain and that I could paint to. None of my boots were working, so I decided to take the kind that would work the most and cut off the detail and sanded it down, and they turned out pretty cute. I sanded them and then sealed them and then gave them a paint job, and you'll see those in the pictures at the end. So here we're starting with the face up. As usual, I go in and shape the eye with white. I wanted these to be big, wide open, round eyes because the character cartoon actually has big round eyes, but I still wanted to have a little bit of my style as well. So I'm doing some shading with pan pastel. And I'm leaving the eye color to last. I did struggle a little bit with the blues. Took me quite a bit of time to blend them out for some reason on this one, but I just really wanted some bright blue eyes, and they turned out pretty well, I guess. I gave her sort of a naturally pink lip. So I hope this video was helpful. If it was, and if you liked this video, I'd love it if you gave it a thumbs up. For more tricks and tips, check us out on Patreon, and more photos of her will be posted on Instagram and Facebook. So if you haven't subscribed, I would love it if you clicked the subscribe button so you don't miss out on future videos. And if you're interested in a commission, you can join my waiting list by either emailing me or messaging me on social media. The links will be in the description box below. Let me know if you have any questions or if there's anything I can do to help you on your journey to create custom dolls. I hope everybody has a great day. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.